man's first disobedience, and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose mortal taste brought death unto the world and all our woe, with loss of Eden, till one greater man restore us and regain the blissful seat. Sing, heavenly muse, that on the secret top of Oreb or of Sinai didst inspire that shepherd who first taught the chosen seed in the beginning how the heaven and earth rose out of chaos. Those opening lines of John Milton's Paradise Lost set out the long-pondered argument of the poet who, by the time he came to write them, was, you might say, a voluntary exile. Milton was now in his 50s, stripped of all the political responsibilities he had held during Cromwell's rule, stripped of most of his property, fined, protected from worse revenges by the efforts of a few loyal friends. And he was blind, totally blind, able to compose only in his head and to dictate his words. This was the man who, as an undergraduate at Christ's College, Cambridge, in the 1620s, had been so beautiful that he was known as the lady of his college, who, supported by his father's belief in him, studied and traveled on his own for years, preparing for the great work he knew he had it in him to write, but who, in 1660, at the restoration of Charles II, saw behind him the wreck of his life as a valued counsellor of the state, the deaths of 2 wives, and as for his writing, mainly the reputation of being a dangerously radical pamphleteer. But Milton knew he was great. He knew it was a matter of time, study, and perseverance. While he was still young, he wrote to a friend, "You ask me what I am thinking of. So may the good deity help me of immortality. And what am I doing? Growing my wings." If such answers sound inhuman, well, there was something uncommonly proud, withdrawn, and dedicated about Milton. The estrangement of his first wife probably resulted from this. But if proof were needed that he could have profoundly human feelings of love and loss, there's a sonnet he wrote in 1658 after the death of his second wife, Catherine. She had never recovered from giving birth to a child, who died 6 weeks later. Milton had already been blind for several years when he married Catherine. He never saw her. Her face was veiled, as he says in the sonnet. He would see her in heaven.
Methought I saw my late espoused saint, brought to me like Alcestis from the grave, whom Jove's great son to her glad husband gave, rescued from death by force, though pale and faint. Mine, as whom washed from spot of childbed taint, purification in the old law did save, and such, as yet once more I trust to have full sight of her in heaven without restraint, came vested all in white, pure as her mind. Her face was veiled, yet to my fancied sight, love, sweetness, goodness in her person shined so clear, as in no face with more delight. But oh, as to embrace me she inclined, I waked, she fled, and day brought back my night.
For many years, Milton had the ambition to write an epic. First, it was to be an Arthurian epic. But after he came back from his travels in Italy in his early 30s, he wrote down a list of almost 100 subjects for a large-scale work. And increasingly over the years, his mind turned towards a drama or epic on Adam and Eve. As he saw it, such a work would need to treat the incidents that led up to their creation and their fall, to see them foreshadowed in the fall of Satan himself. And to do that, it had to go back to the original chaos, the vast abyss over which God brooded and out of which he created everything. So quite consciously, in the spirit of Homer and of Virgil in their own ancient epics, Milton begins Paradise Lost with an invocation to the heavenly muse, an invocation which is also in some sense a synopsis of all that will follow. War in heaven, the fall of man, an attempt to justify, that is, vindicate the ways of God to men.
Of man's first disobedience, and the fruit of that forbidden tree, whose mortal taste brought death into the world and all our woe with loss of Eden, till one greater man restore us and regain the blissful seat. Sing, heavenly muse, that on the secret top of Oreb or of Sinai didst inspire that shepherd who first taught the chosen seed in the beginning how the heavens and earth rose out of chaos. Or of Zion hill delight thee more, and Siloa's brook that flowed fast by the oracle of God. I thence invoke thy aid to my adventurous song, that with no middle flight intends to soar above the Aenonian mount, while it pursues things unattempted yet in prose or rhyme. And chiefly thou, O Spirit, that dost prefer before all temples the upright heart and pure, instruct me. For thou knowest, thou from the first wast present, and with mighty wings outspread, dove-like satst brooding on the vast abyss, and madest it pregnant. What in me is dark, illumine. What is low, raise and support, that to the height of this great argument I may assert eternal providence and justify the ways of God to men.
Things unattempted yet in prose or rhyme. There, at the beginning, we have quite explicitly the exalted ambition Milton set himself.